300 women, 30 voyages, 2 years, millions of tonnes of plastic. Emily Penn and her fellow expedition shipmates are voyaging across the world and rising to the challenges facing our ocean: plastic pollution and, in particular, microplastics.
And we can't believe what we've seen.
Plastic bottles,
toothbrushes,
Plastic bags,
buckets and barrels,
a lot of rope, more pieces of rope, nylon rope.
we're seeing these beautiful dolphins and then chunks of plastic next to them.
all these items once belonged to someone, and they definitely don't belong in the ocean.
Now, Emily, you're on a huge mission. You first set sail in 2014 with 14 women. What has your research shown us so far?
Our research has really been showing how much plastic and where it is, the fact that it ends up accumulating in these hot spots around the world that we call a gyre. And now more recently, we're realizing that a lot of that plastic's sinking. And also starting to understand where it's coming from. So what type of plastic, and ultimately, how can we stop it getting into the ocean in the first place?
How do you actually collect the plastic in the ocean?
We use a fine mesh net behind the back of a manta trawl, which looks like a manta ray with wings that glide along the surface of the ocean. And it scoops up that top section of plastic and plankton that also is on the surface of the ocean as well. We bring that net back on board and we turn it inside out and put it into a sieve, and we find hundreds of pieces of plastic.
What impact does plastic have on marine life in the ocean?
So a lot of the plastics, they can get mistaken for food. The microplastic, it's almost the same size as the plankton and looks very similar when it's floating on the surface of the ocean. So fish or seabirds like an albatross can come along thinking that it's food. They get it in their stomach and they end up eventually dying of starvation because they've got so much plastic in their stomach. You can't get any good food in there instead.
So you're collecting plastic from the surface of the ocean. Does that tell us anything about what's happening in the deep ocean?
We know that 8 million tonnes of plastic is leaving land every year. But when we go out there and do our scientific research, we're only finding about 250,000 tonnes on the surface. What we're wondering is, where's the rest of that 8 million tonnes going if it's not floating around on the surface? And we're expecting that most of that plastic is sinking to the bottom of our ocean.
So what can we be doing to help stop plastics entering the ocean?
Trying to reduce our single-use plastic consumption is really one of the best things that we can all do. We've actually built a website called shift.how, which has hundreds of solutions, because the more I've tackled this issue, the more I've realised there's not one solution to fix plastic pollution. But the great news is there are hundreds. And so it's a case of filtering your way through these hundreds of solutions to find the one that's right for you and then taking action.